Saturday night was the big fundraising dinner for the county party, and do I have some stories to tell?
Gnosis is found wherever Sophia walks and is not dependent upon any school of thought.
That's where the sexual energy is deposited within ourselves. That's where our vitality, our creative energy is there.
Mind, body, and spirit, what we call today the three major divisions of philosophical thinking. Right. Basically, what this is depicting is the person who has self-realization unifies his body, mind, and spirit in such a way that he or she can ascend through the various dimensions of psychic exploration, spiritual creativity, and even in the worlds of science and knowledge as depicted in the book, understand astronomy and cosmology of other worlds we would call today parallel evolution. Right. You can be Christed if you find the feminine. If you do not find the feminine within you, you can be tormented by a judgmental God or a system of belief that suppresses the inner psyche.
Greetings, fellow worker slaves, podcasting at 128 kilobits from the Fortress of Squalitude, not far from the Redneck Mecca. This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. Professor Fuzznuts is headed in my direction. Yes, come here, buddy. Come here. There you go. Good boy. Ash, Buddha, and Lord Squeakington are in my room. They're all eating or drinking. Their water dish was a little low when I was just in there, and they had to have more water, of course. So, and then, of course, once they got water, they had to start eating, and they're just alternating. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and his cats. Get over it. This is a Pistis Sophia episode where Skullbeard and I read a few chapters from the Pistis Sophia. Next episode will be a news episode. My big event this past week was the annual Sumner County Democratic fundraiser, and I was so focused on it, I don't really remember anything else that happened to me this past week. So apologies if you primarily tune in for the things that happened to me at work and elsewhere outside of politics. I knew going in that there were probably going to be some issues with turnout since it's an off year with no elections, and we didn't have any candidates speaking this time around, though one did show up, although he's not an official candidate yet. The good news is that the turnout was still pretty good. Not quite as large as last year, but still not a ghost town. I don't know what the final figures were, but I'd be surprised if they weren't similar to last year's. We had the same number of tables set up as we did the year before, and most of them were full, so it was probably pretty close. My biggest frustration with the dinner was because of mistakes that I had made. I had bought a copy of Eric Hoffer's The True Believer, and was intending to press it into the hands of the head of the state party, Mary Mancini, who was there. But I forgot the damn thing, and I was so pissed at myself I didn't even try to talk to her, which was stupid of me because besides giving her the book, I wanted to tell her of a way to ensure we get a lot of Democrats to win at the state and local level next year. It's actually pretty simple, though I doubt that she would have listened to me, but at least I could say that I tried. What needs to happen, and I'll definitely say this to her at next year's dinner, if she's there or at any other event where we both happen to be, is this. When the subject of legalizing marijuana comes up, the first words out of the Democrats' mouth need to be, "toke up." It doesn't matter what they say after that, those two words will enable them to own the news cycle. And if they own the news cycle, odds are they'll win the election. Or at least do far better than they would have otherwise. There is one thing which I did that I am really proud of, however. I wasn't able to do exactly what I wanted, but given that the idea really only hit me the day or so before we started setting up, the fact that I was able to accomplish even a little bit is remarkable. We started setting up the event on Friday. It was at the same place we held it last year, because the people who own the place are Democrats, so they let us use it for free. And it's a really extravagant place, so why not? And while we were putting up the various signs for the Democratic Party, I kept thinking that we should be sticking up something besides flags and signs which said, Democratic Party, Sumner County Democrats. And then the old noggin flashed back to a series of films that the U.S. government produced during World War II, directed by Frank Capra, that were called Why We Fight. Now, one would think that it'd be obvious to everyone why beating the Nazis was so fucking important and that we didn't need to do this. That's because we're looking at things in retrospect. We know about the camps, we know about Hitler's plans for global domination and things like that. Most people didn't, or if they did, they didn't register them as being all that important. The films also helped to bolster morale amongst the civilian population, who, no doubt, were bothered by the rationing and shortages caused by the war. I really wanted to do something like that, not a video, but posters to inspire people to donate. Of course, I didn't have time to broach this idea before the necessary folks, let alone get the stuff printed up. By sheer coincidence, something happened later on that night, which gave me an opportunity to test the waters for next year. After I got back home, I went to get something to eat, and on my way back, I stumbled across a real estate sign which had fallen over. I picked it up and brought it home with me because it made a perfect base for me to cover up and stick a sign on. I could set it somewhere that it was easy for people to see, yet far enough away from everything so that if there was some controversy about it, it could be taken down and its absence wouldn't be noticed. If I had, for example, put it on the speaker's podium and then someone objected to it, folks certainly would have noticed that there had been a change, since the podium is something that they'd be walking by. Because I stuck the sign near the entrance, people would be able to see it as they walked in, but if someone objected to it and we had to take it down, people would only notice its absence, if they did, when they were leaving. I know what you're wondering. What the fuck was on the sign? I'm coming to that. Once I had the real estate sign, I had figured out where to put it, I needed something to go on it. My plan was to dig up a quote from Eric Hoffer and put that on there. There's a website called Rasterbator, which allows you to upload an image, say what size you want to print it out at, and it handles everything for you. So you get a PDF file of the image with things like crop marks, which makes it easy for you to trim the pages together. The problem I ran into was that the best Hoffer quotes I could pull up quickly tended to be really long. I didn't want to force someone to have to stand there for a few minutes to read a sign. I'm also running low on toner for my printer, so there was a bit of a gamble if I could manage to print something out if it was really complicated. While all of this is going on, I'm also poking around on my Kindle because I know I've got a lot of books on there by authors who might have said something I could use as a quote. One of the books I have is a biography of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. If you don't know who he is, he was a German theologian during World War II who was executed by the Nazis for opposing Hitler. I knew that I had read quotes by him that were pretty spot on, and he was also unlikely to be so familiar to most people that they wouldn't mindlessly nod as they read his quote without actually thinking about what he was saying, the way they would if it were a quote that they'd heard hundreds of times before, like something by JFK or Martin Luther King. I did a quick Google flail and came up with a quote that seemed perfect. It was a call to action without sounding like one was advocating for civil war. It also echoed in its imagery things Martin Luther King had said. Here's the quote. "We are not to simply bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheels of injustice. We are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself." I printed it out, trimmed it up, and taped it to the real estate sign. When my ride picked me up to take me to the event space so we could finish setting up, he complimented me on the sign as soon as I opened the door of his car. Once we got there, being the sneaky bugger that I am, not only did I put the sign up, but I also posted a picture of it in the private Facebook group for the county party. So, you know, if someone happened to miss the sign on their way in or couldn't make it to the event, they could still see it. Not to mention that if someone got butthurt and the sign had to come down, there'd still be a record of it being up. The picture got a lot of likes, and I heard more than a couple people praising the quote at the dinner. all of which means that next year I'm gonna come loaded for bear. I intend to put up a number of signs, most especially ones which remind people of the horrific things Trump has done, with a pretty blunt statement that if we don't donate or get active, then they can expect Trump to win the election. They did something at the event to help raise money, which I thought was pretty cool. They did a straw poll of the Democrats running for president. They had containers labeled with the various Dems running, and you dropped in money for the candidate you wanted to get the nomination. The winner of the straw poll, I'm happy to say, was Elizabeth Warren. Biden came in a distant second. In an area like this, for Warren to handily beat Biden, that's a good sign. Now, Patreon subscribers will no doubt be wondering about the enigmatic message at the start of the bonus episode I pushed out the other day. Here's where that comes into play as to why I shared the particular bit of material with you that I did. And don't worry, this will make sense to those of you who've not heard the Patreon episode. The person who gave me a ride home from the event is a friend of mine who happens to sit on the executive committee of the county party. And they gave me the inside scoop of some things which have been happening at the executive meetings. I've not gone to too many of the meetings because they've been less than forthcoming about when they're being held. This has to do with one of the folks who shows up when they make the meetings known. He's a pro-life Democrat, contradiction in terms, I agree, and insists on trying to explain to people at every meeting how one can be both pro-life and a Democrat. This is, to put it mildly, more than a bit annoying. And most of the executive committee for the county party are pro-choice women, and the other members are pro-choice men, so they really don't want to hear this guy's shit. Additionally, there are a couple of people who don't see the point of our monthly potlucks and other activities. Coincidentally, these people would complain that the party wasn't doing anything before they were elected to the committee. There's also some squabbling over if people are doing what they're supposed to do, as far as members of the executive committee. All of this is fairly normal, as it is what happens with group dynamics as organizations deal with changes in their leadership. All the people on the executive committee were elected this year, and only one of them, I believe, had been on it before this. I'm not panicking about this, but I am going to start taking a more active role in things to try and ease them into the direction that they need to go. I'm not going to try and get them to endorse a particular candidate or anything like that, just nudge them into being more visible and get more people involved in party activities. That is one of the reasons why I gave the Patreon supporters the bit I did, because that has a good discussion on things that the Democrats need to be doing. And while in general it focuses on national issues, it also has some things which can be applied by local parties. I realize it might seem strange to worry about this stuff with the election over a year away, but you have to work on these things as soon as they appear and get everything taken care of well before you get close to the election. That way you can roll smoothly towards, hopefully, victory. And one of the things that I hope to do by mentioning this is, if any of you are locally involved with politics, you have some ideas and there can be some cross-pollination. I would really like to have routine meetings with various executive committees for the different counties in the state, so that they can share ideas and things like that. I don't know how easy that'll be pulled off. After all, we have the county chair of our party doesn't see the point of a lot of the stuff we do, which I'm not friends with her on Facebook, so I can't really directly talk to her about it, but I know people who are, and I've kind of given them some little hints and suggestions on maybe how to get her to understand things. And if I happen to be around her when and she mentioned something about it, I have something that I intend to say. I'm just going to point out to her that, if you go to a Baptist church service, which most people in this area are Southern Baptists, the real point of that church service is just to tell people if they don't give money to the church, they're going to hell. And that's one of the things that we need, the things like the potluck dinners and other activities for, is to be able to get people to understand you've got to cough up some money if we're going to get things done around here, if we're going to make some changes. It's sad that politics runs on money, but it does. And I am not someone who's just speaking out of my mouth. I actually give probably more than I can afford to both the local party and to the national party and to Elizabeth Warren, who I would really like to see as our next president. But again, as I've often said, if this fails, it will not be because of me. I will have done everything that I know how to do to try to shift things politically in my county, my state, my country. So regardless of the outcome, I can hold my head high. One other thing I'll mention about the dinner before we get to small tidbit of news and then to Skullbeard and I reading from the Pistis Sophia is that I met this woman at the dinner who she is a leftist prepper. Now, I've met right-wing preppers, but she's a leftist prepper. And she's really pro-gun, really pro-this, really pro-that. And I hope I didn't piss her off. I was trying to be nice because, the whole advocate, I understand the mentality, let's just burn all this shit down and start afresh. There's a deep attraction to things like that. The problem is an inordinate number of innocent people tend to get hurt when you try and do something like that. But she was talking about things, and I says, nobody wants a civil war. I says, talk to people from, the Sudan, Kosovo. I work with a lot of refugees. I know how horrible it is. You've got to understand that. And the other thing I will say, I don't know a lot of details about her being a prepper. I just know that she is one. The funny thing is she showed up driving a late model Jeep. She had a gas can on the roof. And, then later on I found out she was a prepper, and I was like, yeah, I can understand the four-wheel drive. You want that if you're, thinking it's going to be a survival type situation. But a gas-powered late-model Jeep is probably not what you want. Late-model Jeeps, late-model anything, that are often hard to fix because they require, computerized equipment, which is often only available at the dealership. Gasoline, in a survivalist-type situation, gasoline might be hard to come by, whereas vegetable oil, which can be turned relatively easy into biodiesel, assuming you don't convert your diesel engine to run on both straight vegetable oil and biodiesel, that's a better option. I didn't say that. Of course, I also didn't ask about, how she planned on making gunpowder. Because a lot of these civil wars, the only reason they're able to continue is they have outside sources of arms and ammunition, many of which are made in the United States. A little hard if, shit turns into a civil war sometimes to get that. I mean, there are There's one gun manufacturer in town now that I know of, and a second one is planning on opening up here very soon. We get into a Civil War kind of situation, and if I can't get out of the country, I'm probably going to blow those fuckers up. I know where both of them, I know where the one is located, and the other one is going in not far from it. I also, I took high school chemistry, so I know a little bit about making explosives. And, that's on my list of things to do. Take out some gun manufacturers, take out a few churches. I mean, if we're going to have a civil war and everything's going to chaos, I say burn the fucking churches, man. I mean, their religious nutbaggery help push us in that direction, so fuck them. I'll leave the hospitals and the schools, but churches, I might just, I'm not saying nobody wants a civil war. Nobody wants a civil war. I'm just saying if you find yourself in one and, you're wanting to make a stab at something to change things for the better, church probably wouldn't be a bad thing to burn. And according to a firefighter in one of the Facebook groups I'm in, churches tend to burn real well. Something about the design of them tends to make them go up. And since they're usually unoccupied when they go on, they catch on fire, the fire department really doesn't care about putting them out. Just food for thought. Okay, the final thing before we get to Skullbeard and I is that I was on an episode with the folks from the Free Thought Profit podcast that will be going up later on this week. You'll probably want to check that out. I'll put the link to it in next week's show notes, simply because that would be the only thing in this week's show notes. And when you get this episode, they won't have posted that because they put theirs out on Fridays. And while I try to put mine out on Sundays, I couldn't because I was recording the episode with them. And by the time I got done with them and got the script written, it was time for me to go to bed. So, anyways, now here is more of what you crave. Skullbeard and I with the Pista Sophia. Enjoy. And a real quick note before we start. There's some audio weirdness with this. I've done my best to clean it up. I'm not entirely sure what caused it, although I do have a good idea to fix it. So, apologies, and hopefully next time we'll do better.
When then the Savior had said this unto his disciples, he said unto them, Understand ye in what manner I discourse with you. That should go up at the end because it's a question? And Mary again started forward and said, Yea, my Lord, I understand in what manner thou dost discourse with me, and I will comprehend them all. Thy words now, therefore, concerning these words which thou sayest, my mind hath brought forward 4 thoughts in me, and my light man hath led me and exalted and seethed, desiring to come forth out of me and enter into thee. Now therefore, my Lord, hearken that I may tell thee the 4 thoughts which have arisen in me.
Yeah. Oh, and since you missed it, I'll go ahead and give you this little bit of a spoiler for the stuff that Seamus and I read. There are a number of times when, because it's the same crap as this. Yep. Somebody, "Hey, Jesus, what the hell's this mean?" And Jesus, gives them a response. But there's in all of them, when they ask, "What the hell's this mean?" Jesus' response is, "Well, I told you this before, but I'll tell it to you again." Wow.
Nice.
These people are fucking idiots. Okay, so I'm just wondering if we're going to encounter any of that in these later segments.
You think?
Who the hell knows? The first thought hath arisen in me concerning the word which thou hast spoken. Now therefore the soul giveth the apology, and seal unto all the rulers who are in the region of the king, the Adamas, and giveth the apology, and the honor, and the glory of all their seals, and the songs of praise, to the region of the light. Concerning this word, then thou hast spoken unto us aforetime, when they brought thee the piece of money, and thou didst see that it was of silver and copper, and didst ask, Whose is this image? They said, The king's. And when thou sawest that it was of silver and copper mixed, thou said, Give therefore the kings unto the king, and gods unto God. Oh, we gotta stop there. And we ain't even done with that sentence.
Nope.
We have got to stop there, because either the whole render unto Caesar what is Caesar's
Yep,
is
that's
wrong,
interesting.
or this is wrong, because that is not what Jebus has said in the New Testament as far as we know.
Well, this is fanfic.
Well, yeah, but we don't know when this fanfic was written.
I'm suspecting an awful lot later than some people would like you to believe.
Well,
This-
that could be, but this fanfic could also have been written earlier than the Gospels.
Maybe.
See, there is a theory among certain biblical scholars that the figure of Christ is someone who existed a lot earlier than the dates assigned to him, which
Okay.
like 100 years before Jesus was supposed to have been born. So that would
Allegedly.
actually fit, because the Romans weren't quite so heavy-handed in the area at that time, and so they would have talked about king and not Caesar, because Julius Caesar, remember, he didn't come to power until like 60-something BCE or 50-something BCE, because he was killed in like 66 BCE. Yeah, so
I don't know. This whole thing's anachronistic.
well,
It
yeah,
seems
well, there's
it's
a lot of.
everywhere.
Okay, Julius Caesar was born in 100 BCE, and he reigned from 46 to 44 BCE.
Yeah.
So, in theory, this could be before, this could have been written before the Romans took over Jerusalem.
Interesting.
Which would lead credence to those who say that if there was somebody we can identify as being Jesus, it would have been a dude who lived before Jesus is said to have been born. Which, let's see here. There was what's his name?
Yeshua ben Yosef.
Yeah, and there was another guy who was.
Well, there's a.
He was the ruler. He was the rightful ruler of Jerusalem until Herod killed him with the help of the Romans.
Okay.
And I can't remember his name. And I'm not going to bother to look it up. We've talked about it before in the podcast. If you don't know what it is, that's your problem. All right. Now, back to this whole thingy. That is, if the soul receiveth mysteries, it giveth the apology to all the rulers, and to the region of the king, the Adamas. This sounds vaguely familiar. And the soul giveth the honor and the glory to all those of the region of the light, and the word, it hath glistened. Yeah, nothing kinky in that. when thou didst see that it is made up of silver and copper, it is the type thereof, that in it the soul is the power of the light, which is the refined silver, and that in it is the counterfeiting spirit, which is the material copper. This, my lord, is the first thought. Oh, God, not the counterfeiting spirit again.
Did we have one of those before?
Well, in the shit that Seamus and I read, there was, according to Jeebus, humans are born, and we are just like God, 3 in 1. You have the material body, you have the soul or spirit, and you have the counterfeiting spirit. The counterfeiting spirit is the part of you that is aiming at the whole temptation stuff. And the soul and the body sort of, don't deal with that too well. And, the question Seamus and I both had was, well, why the fuck are we born with a counterfeiting spirit that brings us and makes us do evil? That seems like it's not really our fault if we do wrong, because, we've got this counterfeiting spirit in us that is stronger than the good stuff in us. And it was just really weird. It seemed to really indicate that reincarnation was a thing the Gnostics believed in. Yeah, it gets really convoluted at points, so I'm not even going to try to drag it out in this shit. But yeah, when you hear it, you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that does sound like reincarnation, even though it's not explicitly said. And this is obviously referencing that.
All right. So is it like a little demon on your shoulder?
It's never really clear. It seems to indicate that that part of you is actually stronger than the good part and the physical part, and the physical part doesn't really matter, but the good part does. And you're sort of left with wondering, well, how the fuck do you get the bad part stuck in you along with the good part?
I don't know.
Yeah.
The second thought is, on the other hand, that which thou hast just said unto us concerning the soul which receiveth the mysteries, if it cometh into the region of the rulers of the way and of the midst, they come forth to meet it in exceedingly great fear, and they are afraid of it. And the soul giveth the mystery of the fear unto them, and they are afraid before it. And it giveth the destiny to its region, and it giveth the counterfeiting spirit to its own region, and it giveth the apology and the seals to every one of the rulers who are on the ways, and it giveth the honor and the glory of the land of the seals, and the songs of the songs of praise to all those in the region of the light. Concerning this word, my Lord, thou hast spoken aforetime through the mouth of our brother Paul. Give tax to whom tax is due, give fear to whom fear is due, give tribute to whom tribute is due, give honor to whom honor is due, and then give land to whom land is due, and owe not any other thing. That is, my Lord, the soul which receiveth mysteries giveth apology to all regions. This, my Lord, is the second thought. So, just give all your shit away?
The third thought, on the other hand, concerning the word which thou hast aforetime spoken unto us, the counterfeiting spirit is hostile to the soul, making it do all sins and all mischiefs, and it transferreth it in the chastisements because of all the sins which it hath made it commit. In a word, it is hostile to the soul in every way. Well, it just seems really weird to me that, you're going to shoot somebody in the foot and then penalize them because they can't run the 100-meter fast enough.
Yep. All right.
Concerning this word, therefore, thou hast said unto us aforetime. Oh, now you remember shit Jesus said to you before. The foes of the man are the dwellers in his house, that is, the dwellers in the house of the soul are the counterfeiting spirit and the destiny, which are hostile to the soul the whole time, making it commit all sin and all iniquities. Lo, this, my Lord, is the third thought.
You're broken.
Yeah, and at this point in time, I believe they thought that the soul didn't enter the body until well after the baby was born.
Yep, with the first breath.
No. Actually, I think, I know at some point in time, the Catholic Church, and it's possibly, the earlier incarnations of the Church, had the attitude that a baby didn't have a soul until months after it was born.
Oh.
Because the whole infant mortality thing at that time was so fucking high.
Yeah, you don't want to get too attached.
Yeah.
The fourth thought, on the other hand, how many fucking hands do they have? Concerning the word which thou hast said, if the soul goeth forth out of the body and travelleth on the way with the counterfeiting spirit, and if it hath not found the mystery of the undoing of all the bonds and the seals which are bound to the counterfeiting spirit, so that it may cease to haunt, or be assigned to it, if it then hath not found it, the counterfeiting spirit leadeth the soul to the Virgin of Light, the judge, and the judge, the Virgin of Light, proveth the soul, and findeth that it hath sinned. And as she also hath not found the mysteries of the light with it, she handeth it over to one of her receivers, and a receiver leadeth it, and casteth it into the body, and it cometh not out of the changes of the body before it hath yielded its last circuit. Concerning this word, then, my Lord, thou hast said unto us aforetime, be reconciled with thy foe as long as thou art on the way with him, lest perchance thy foe hand thee over to the judge, and the judge hand thee over to the servant, and the servant cast thee into prison. And thou shalt not come forth out of the region till thou hast yielded the last farthing. Okay.
Because of this, manifestly is thy word. Every soul which cometh forth out of the body, bow chicka wow wow, and travelleth on the way with the counterfeiting spirit, and findeth not the mystery of the undoing of all the seals and the bonds, so that it may undo itself from the counterfeiting spirit which is bound to it, that soul which hath not found mysteries of the light, and hath not found mysteries of detachment from the counterfeiting spirit which is bound to it, if then it hath not found it. God damn, this is repetitive. The counterfeiting spirit leadeth that soul to the Virgin of Light. Wait, why? That's the last thing you would expect the counterfeiting spirit to do. And the Virgin of the Light, yea, that judge, handeth over that soul to one of her receivers, and a receiver casteth it into the sphere of the aeons, and it cometh not out of the changes of the body before it hath yielded the last circuit which is appointed for it. This then, my Lord, is the fourth thought. What the fuck did that even mean? I mean, I can't understand that even in their warped version of reality.
It's redundant and repetitive and redundant. And Mary answered and said, oh, my Lord, in what type then do the baptisms forgive sins? I heard thee say the retributive servitors follow the soul, being witnesses to it for all the sins which it committeth, that they may convict it in the judgments. Now therefore, my Lord, do the mysteries of the baptisms wipe out the sins which are in the hands of the retributive servitors, so that they forget them. Now therefore, my Lord, tell unto us the type, how they forgive sins, Nay, we desire to know it with sureness.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Did you find something interesting?
Well, no. How many chapters have we read?
Too fucking many?
Is that 115? I don't know.
Yeah. And the Savior answered and said unto Mary, Finally hast thou spoken. The servitors indeed are they who bear witness to all sins, but they abide in the judgments, seizing the souls and convicting all the souls of sinners who have received no mysteries. And they keep them fast in the chaos, chastising them. And those And those retributive receivers cannot overstep the chaos to reach the orders which are above the chaos, and convict the souls which come forth out of those regions. Well, okay, you kind of said before that the good folks go to the good regions and the bad folks go to the bad regions, and the good folks can travel within all the good regions if they want. So it seems logical that the good folks couldn't be dragged down to the bad regions. Just kind of a crazy thing here. Now then, it is not lawful to use force on the souls which receive the mysteries and lead them into the chaos. Oh, okay. Well, obviously evil is something which obeys the law, right? That's why it's evil. It obeys the law. So that the retributive servitors may convict them. But the God damn, man, that is just... But the retributive servitors convict the souls of the sinners, and they keep fast those who have received no mysteries, which may lead them out of the chaos, because fuck those assholes. The souls, on the other hand, which receive mysteries, they have no power of convicting them, because they do not come forth out of their regions, and also, if they come forth into their regions, they are not able to obstruct them. Nay, they cannot lead them into that chaos. Man, I feel like Gene Wilder and Young Frankenstein. Where he's going, It's Frankenstein!
Uh-huh. Hearken, moreover, that I may tell you the word in truth, in what type the mystery of baptism forgiveth sins. Now, therefore, if the souls sin when they are still in the world, the retributive servitors indeed come and are witnesses of all the sins which the souls committeth, lest in sooth they should come forth out of the regions of the chaos, in order that they may convict them in the judgments which are outside the chaos. And the counterfeiting spirit becometh witness of all the sins which the souls shall commit, in order that it may convict it in the judgments which are outside the chaos, not only that it may bear witness of them, but all the sins of the souls, it sealeth the sins and maketh them fast unto the soul, in order that all the rulers of the chastisements of the sinners may recognize it, that it is a sinning soul, and that they may know of the number of sins which it hath committed by the seals which the counterfeiting spirit hath made fast unto it, so that it shall be chastised according to the number of sins which it hath committed. This do they with all the sinning souls. Alright, so you're bonded to your sin?
Mm-hmm. Something like that. Now therefore, he who shall receive the mysteries of the baptisms, then the mystery of them becometh a great exceedingly violent wise fire, and it burneth up the sins, and entereth into the soul secretly, and consumeth all the sins which the counterfeiting spirit hath made fast unto it. And when it hath finished purifying all the sins which the counterfeiting spirit hath made fast unto the soul, it entereth into the body secretly, and pursueth all the pursuers secretly, and separateth them off on the side of the portion of the body, for it pursueth the counterfeiting spirit and the destiny, and separateth them off from the power and from the soul, and putteth them on the side of the body, so that it separateth off the counterfeiting spirit and the destiny, and the body into one portion, and the soul and power, on the other hand, it separateth into another. Man, I need some good drugs to even come close to comprehending this bullshit. The mystery of baptism, on the contrary, remaineth in the midst of the two, continually separating them from one another, so that it maketh them clean and purifieth them, in order that they may not be stained by matter. Little Club Soda will get that right out there, guys.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Now, therefore, Mary, this is the way in which the mysteries of the baptisms forgive sins and all iniquities.
When then the Saviour had said this, he said unto his disciples, Understand ye in what manner I discourse with you? Getting flashbacks, man.
Yeah, I know.
Then Mary started forward and said, Yea, my Lord, in truth I inquire closely into all the words which thou sayest. Concerning the word, then, of the forgiveness of sins, thou hast spoken unto us in similitude aforetime, saying, I am come to cast fire on the earth. And again, what will I that it burn? And again, thou hast distinguished it clearly, saying, I have a baptism to baptize in it, and how shall I endure until it is accomplished? Think ye I am come to cast peace on the earth? Nay, but I come to cast division. From now on, 5 will be in one house, 3 will be divided against 2, and 2 against 3. This, my Lord, is the word which thou hast spoken clearly. What?
Yeah, right.
How did they get to the 3/5 arrangement?
Ooh, that's a steep cut snap, buddy. Which, fuck it, this shit's boring. Let me do a diversion. Okay, there's the Canadian TV series, I don't know if you've seen it or not, called Murdoch Mysteries.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, okay. It's basically a steampunk CSI Toronto. You know, so it's set in Toronto, late 1800s, and the lead character is sort of a mad genius type who does all these weird inventions, things like that. And there's an episode. Okay, and it just seems to me that they must have been targeting the American market when they were doing this, because somebody's shot and killed, and the character who's sort of like I said, a genius Sherlock Holmes type, he says,
"Yep,
guy was shot with a Derringer, the same gun used to kill Abraham Lincoln." And I'm like, I don't think that Derringer and Abraham Lincoln are going to be the first things that pop to a Canadian's head. Derringer and somebody else would probably pop to a Canadian's head first, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm trying to think, have there been assassinations in Canada? Who was assassinated with a Derringer in Canada?
Well, who the hell else was assassinated with a Derringer, I guess? You should ask. But, I mean, I know in the U.S. we have a lot of different, Western stories that deal with Derringers, and they don't involve Lincoln. So I'm kind of figuring there's probably something like that. I mean, y'all were just as genocidal as we were with your native populations.
Huh. John Wilkes Booth used this Derringer pistol to assassinate President Abraham Lincoln, changing the future of the United States.
Yeah. And
in Ford's Theater.
And also, in theory, helping to create Canada, because our whole Civil War is what made the British say, hey, maybe we should actually make Canada a defined region, country, etc., etc. At least that's what I've been told.
Yep.
I know our founding fathers had absolutely no luck when they went up there trying to convince y'all to join us.
Yeah, no.
And the largest naval battles during the War of 1812 all took place in the Great Lakes.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Huh.
And you finished up with and purify the perfect souls, right? Or was it
spoken clearly?
Okay. We'll get back to this garbage heap. The word indeed which thou hast spoken, I am come to cast fire on the earth, and what will I that it burn? That is my Lord. So you're going to torch God? Cool! Thou hast brought the mysteries of the baptisms into the world, and thy pleasure is that they should consume all the sins of the soul and purify them. Kinky. A little more intense than just having hot wax dripped on you, buddy. And therefore, and thereafter, again, thou hast distinguished it clearly, saying, I have a baptism to baptize in it. That's kind of like saying I have a staple to staple it with, or I have a staple to staple to staple. Yeah. Don't even try. And how shall I endure?
It's not the best writing I've ever encountered.
Not by a wide margin. And how shall I endure until it is accomplished? That is, thou wilt not remain in the world until the baptisms are accomplished and purify the perfect souls. Okay, so this kind of sounds like God.
You get your white.
Kind of sounds like God isn't gonna hang around until enough people get dunked, but that doesn't seem to indicate any validity in, the dunkings or whatever the fuck else.
No, not at all. And moreover, the word which thou hast spoken unto us aforetime, think ye I am come to cast peace on the earth? Nay, but I am come to cast division. For from now on 5 will be in the one house, will be divided against 2, and 2 against 3. That is, thou hast brought the mystery of the baptisms into the world, and it hath effected a division on the bodies of the world, because it hath separated the counterfeiting spirit and the body and the destiny into one portion. The soul and the power, on the other hand, it hath separated into another portion. That is, 3 will be against 2, and 2 against 3. And when Mary had said this, the Saviour said, Well said, thou spiritual and light pure Mary, this is the solution of the word. It's hardly a solution.
Yeah.
You're making it overly complicated, and I don't know.
Because you touch yourself at night, that's why.
Hey, I've been wearing a kilt since I got back from Scotland. I can touch myself whenever I want.
Oh, man. A close friend of mine who, according to the ladies, really rocked his kilt, was killed in an accident a month ago. I mean, at the beginning of the month, I should say.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. It's a real bummer for me. He was the last time I saw him was at our 30th year class reunion, and I mean, he and I we had a good time. We got way too drunk. We went out and had White Castles after we got way too drunk. As we smoked too much, but I was hoping to be able to see him here real soon, and that's not going to happen. And that's dude was, he was a handyman, and he was doing really well here recently. I mean, he died at the beginning of this month, and from December of last year until May of this year, not only had he done various, building jobs that he had to work on, but he'd been to 5 fucking different countries.
Nice.
He went, like, he would go to Asia and hit a couple of countries there. And then he would hit South America and hit a couple of countries there.
Yep.
And it wasn't, he flew to, say the Philippines and then jumped to Laos or Vietnam or anything like that. He would fly, 1 month to the Philippines, and then the next month he'd fly, he'd hang out, come back to the States, and the next month he'd fly to Thailand or wherever in Asia, and then after that he'd go down to South America, or Central America, both. So, it's just kind of a bit of a bummer for me. Let's knock out this last bit of bullshit. Chapter 117. Mary answered again and said, "My lord, I will still continue to question thee." That doesn't seem to be like a good idea. "Now, therefore, my lord, bear with me questioning thee." Okay. "Lo, in openness have we known the type in which the baptisms forgive sins." Well, I kind of think that was the whole point of the whole business, but whatever. "Now, on the other hand, the mystery of these 3 spaces and the mysteries of this first mystery..." Oh, God, no, we're not going back to square one, are we? "And the mysteries of the ineffable, in what type do they forgive sins? Do they forgive in the type of the baptisms or not?"
Bloody hell. The Savior answered again and said, "Nay, but all the mysteries of the 3 spaces forgive the soul in all the regions of the rulers of the sign, which the soul hath committed from the beginning onwards. They forgive it, and moreover they forgive the sins which it thereafter will commit, until the time up to which every one of the mysteries shall be effective. The time up to which every one of the mysteries shall be effective, I will tell you at the expansion of the universe."
Yeah, that's his thing. It seems, Oh, yeah, I'll tell you when the universe expands. Okay. And, what about the rulers of the cosine?
Yeah, is there a tangent? Oh.
I have no...
It is sine, S-I-N-E, like...
Yeah, like sine and cosine. I mean... It's not
sine,
like...
cosine, tangent.
Yeah, it's not like sine like stop sign. It's sine like sine and cosine. And moreover, the mystery of the first mystery. Oh, God. No, we're back to square fucking one. No. We did not read all this bullshit to go back to square one. And the mysteries
told you it's redundant.
Yeah. And the mysteries of the ineffable forgive the soul in all the regions of the rulers, all the sins and all the iniquities which the soul hath committed. And not only do they forgive it all, but they impute unto it no sin from this hour until all eternity, because of the gift of that great mystery and its prodigiously great glory. Fornicate me with an iron fucking stick.
In the ear with a rusty cordless drill. When then the Saviour had said this, he said unto his disciples, Understand ye in what manner I speak with you? And Mary answered again and said, Yea, my Lord, already I have seized on all the words which thou sayest. Now therefore, my Lord, concerning the word which thou sayest, all the mysteries of the three spaces forgive sin and cover their souls' iniquities. David the prophet then hath prophesied aforetime concerning this word, saying, Blessed are they whose sins are forgiven and whose iniquities are covered. This really sounds an awful lot like fire insurance.
Well, the 3 days...
You buy it, everything's cool. Mm-hmm.
The 3 days thing, I think, tracks back to the time of the winter solstice, where it seems like the sun doesn't change its position as it rises.
Yep.
If you pay attention to astronomy, you know that as the year progresses, the sun rises at different points on the horizon, except for at the winter solstice, which is the source of the whole 3 days of, various religious figures being dead.
Yep. He died and rose again.
And that is something that Joseph Campbell, who was an expert on mythology, never picked up on. Whereas T.W. Doane, who wrote Bible Myths and Their Parallels in Other Religions, had figured out 60 years before Campbell published his first book.
Oh.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of parallels between Doane's work and the various things that Campbell did, but Doane figured out things that Campbell never grasped, and, the archaeological evidence in the years since have definitely verified Doane's work. And while I'm not aware of any archaeological evidence which has contradicted what Joseph Campbell did, Doane's work is more reliant on things like archaeological evidence than Campbell's is. Campbell's is more, these things are psychological, and Doane is, these things are psychological and physical.
That's it for this episode of The Atheist in the Trailer Park Podcast. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, as well as just about anywhere else podcasts can be found. Many of the episodes are also on YouTube. Follow the show on Twitter. @TParkAtheist is the show's Twitter handle. It's on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist.com. If you happen to like the podcast, please rate it on iTunes. If you'd like to support the podcast, there's a donate button on the show notes page. You can support it via Patreon at patreon.com/TNTucker. Thanks for listening.
Say goodnight, Fosnuts.
All I know is this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting.
Damned cat.